Right guys, so today I'm back doing what I was going to do the other day, but because of the weather it can't make its mind up at the minute, so it's here and there. Right, so what I was going to do the other day, if you can hear me, is check out the noise coming from this wheel. Now the first thing I'm going to do is check that there's how much play is in the wheel bearing. Now the wheel bearing on the W202 chassis, like 202, 210, 208, R170, the wheel bearings on the front, I've never checked the back, but the wheel bearings on the front are adjustable, so you can sort of take a bit of wear out of them by repacking them and just tightening them up a little bit, because they're sort of a conical type wheel bearing. I don't think it's a wheel bearing on this, but that's the first thing I'm going to check. I think what it is a brake rotor. As it heats up, because it's only after a fair bit of driving, the rotor I think is heating up, expanding, and that's catching on the pad and just causing like a binding, graunching kind of noise. But we'll get into that first. So before I remove it, I'm just going to check the wheel for play. That is actually solid, there's no play at all. In fact, I've never actually had a wheel that tight, or wheel bearing that tight, I should say. There's a bit of something that way. Now I would say that's a tie rod. If I had a feel of that, that's definitely tie rod. Yeah. It's not that much, so it's not too bad. Right, so the main reason I'm doing this is when I've been driving for a while, I get a graunching, binding type noise when I apply the brakes, and it seems most prominent from this side, although it could also be the prop shaft drive cushion to the rear diff, or it's at the front. I can't remember which end it is off the top of my head. But basically my transmission is not very well at all, and I think it's either valve body or conductor plate issue as usual, but it's about done. So I'm just pushing as much life out of it as I can before it goes completely. But I just want to check everything out on the rotor assembly and that, to make sure that there's nothing untoward happening here. And to me it just looks like it may be, as the brake disc gets hot, the metal is expanding, as all metal does, and this lip may be grinding on the pad. There's plenty of meat on the pads, the disc's got plenty of meat on it. I'm not that worried about that, because I've got full performance rotors, EBC pads, and Hell Performance stainless steel braided brake lines. The gimbal's trying to fight the wind there, sorry if you can hear a lot of wind. I'm just trying to get this out before the bad weather comes in properly, because I think there's a storm coming in anyway. But yeah, I want to point out one thing. If you're prospectively buying a 202, R170, W210, or a 208 like this, but I'll bring you a bit closer for that. Right, so those platforms all use the same coil by shock suspension setup, dual wishbone, nice modern, good performance design. The main thing with this setup is though, some people, some not very wise people, like to take this rubber boot out from above the suspension spring itself, above the coil. That cushion is there to soften the blow on this metal spring cup. Now my Burgundy 202, some previous owner had the wise idea to, they either had the springs changed and they didn't put the cushion back, or they just wanted it a little bit lower. Either way, the cushion wasn't there, and what it caused was the bare spring to be pushing against the metal here, and it caused a crack all along this ridge of this spring cup. Now, not every Mercedes of this era has had something silly like that happen, but it's something to keep an eye out on. You can turn the wheels on lock and have a good look with a torch at the suspension cups. It's mostly on the front, because the suspensions are slightly differently on the back, so it's an issue particularly common on the front. Well, I think it only happens on the front, to be honest. The other thing is regardless of how well it's been maintained, they can also break away here. And this is the most likely thing to happen, where the welds give way or the metal just tears away from the chassis, particularly if it's a higher mileage car and it's more rotten. And what happens then is the suspension literally just collapses, and it's quite a brutal thing, and you can lose control of the car, which is why it's very important when looking at one of these cars to check out the front suspension cups. It is a common thing to happen, and you can buy this part from Mercedes. They do sell it, they sell it separately, and it's not even that expensive. Now obviously taking it to a body shop or a fabricator of your choice is going to be pricey to have it welded on, but when you're looking at these cars, always worth turning the front wheels lock to lock and just shining a torch in here and having a look that this spring cup is firmly attached as it should be. Right, so that's good and bad news for me. I didn't find anything. The knock, I'm sure, is the anti-roll bar bushing, which is normal. The graunching binding sound, that's either going to be what I think it is, which I think is more likely, because you can really tell when the brake discs are hot on this car. I mean, on all of these cars, the brakes are not ideal. That's how I'm going to put it. Not ideal, which is the main reason that I've got all the stuff to upgrade them. Now, ultimately, if this car does get an M-104 like I plan to, it will be getting C32 brakes at some point as well. So those nice beefy calipers and rotors will be able to keep up with the horsepower that will be expected of that engine. So that'll do it for now, guys. I mean, I know it's not hugely interesting to most of you. You want to see me ripping an engine to bits or stuffing turbos on stuff, which will be coming. But I've got to get myself on my feet again first before I can do that. For the meantime, I'm trying to do these helpful videos. Like I said, with that, very important to check these spring cups out on these cars before you hand over lots of hard-earned cash. That's unless you're paying 500 quid for it like I did. Like, you take a risk at that. I mean, this came from a Copart auction, so you expect to get a dog. And to be honest, this looks like a pretty car, but it's not. It is so rusty, it's unbelievable, and that's why I don't much care for it. I would love a nice example one, because I do like the CLK. I love the way it handles, but this poor thing has been through the works. So yeah. Right, guys, that'll do it. Like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.